Hello, my name is Brittany. Welcome to another day of Bookmas. We're almost there. We only have less than a week left at this point. So yes. So in today's video, I wanted to talk to you about my 4-star reads. I was thinking about doing 5-star reads, but then I was just like, that is just too subjective because I think that the book recommendations that you have are basically very curated to who you are as an individual. And so if you're giving out recommendations, I feel as though a 4-star read is more realistic and indicative, because I think that a 5-star read, like that extra point, goes beyond either something that you can either relate to or something that fascinates you in such a specific way that speaks to your character as a person. I might be thinking too deep, but whatever. So I was just like, I only have 2 5-star reads this year, and I've already talked about my 5-star reads to the nth degree. So I was just like, let me do 4-star reads. One, I have more of them, and I think it gives more of a holistic representation of books that I like. And if you're looking for recommendations, I think that would be more helpful than me only talking about my 5-star reads. Does that make sense? Anyway, so the first book I want to talk to you about is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. She was a child actress. If you grew up as a child in the early 2000s, you probably saw her on Nickelodeon. She was on iCarly, Sam and Cat. She was kind of like that tomboy figure who was a little bit aggressive. She was that character, and this was basically an autobiography of her life, of how she came to fame, and honestly also the relationship that she had with her mother. And I don't want to ruin it. I'm going to leave it at there. What I would say about this book is I gave it a 4-star, and I am a little bit biased because for autobiographies, or when somebody's actually writing about their real life experiences, I find it very hard to give any book honestly less than 3.5, 4 stars, because how am I going to tell you that oh yeah, I don't like the story about your real life? That seems crazy, right? I can maybe not like how it is written or how you told your story, but I feel as though I can't be like, oh yeah, the book was bad, I wasn't entertained. It's your story and you wrote it. It's not like somebody else wrote it for you. You wrote it. It's kind of I gotta be a little bit gracious in my head, right? But also, in my opinion, the book was very artfully done by really addressing the labyrinth of manipulation that happens, and when you get into a place where you're specifically manipulated as a child and growing up in that arena, how that distorts how your brain processes things. I think it was a really good book to read, and I would definitely recommend checking it out if you're looking to listen to an autobiography of somebody's life. The second book that I want to talk about is Imperfect Justice, and this is the prosecuting Casey Anthony. This book is written by Jeff Ashton, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the I'm Glad My Mom Died book. With this book, it's based off a true experience. Jeff Ashton, he is one of the prosecuting attorneys for the case with Casey Anthony. For me, going into this book, I really didn't know much. So the whole incident of Casey Anthony happened when I was 7 or 8, so I kind of remember her name as something in the background of my mind, but I was not trying to watch the news like that. I was at 7 8, my mind was not there. So when I came across this book, I was just like, okay, that would be interesting, very much law, legal, and hearing it, even though I know it's definitely a biased perspective, but hearing the court case from the prosecuting's viewpoint or peer view of things that happened, and then also finding out, because I didn't even know in the book when I was reading it, I didn't know what the verdict was. I didn't even know. Maybe I was just really ignorant, but I did not even know. So hearing what happened, the resolution of the Casey Anthony trial, and all of the evidence that happened and was curated and brought together was just so super interesting to me, but also oh my goodness, this is crazy. Definitely recommend that book, especially if you like true crime, but you're looking for true crime that is not about serial killers necessarily, but there is a murder that happens in that book, just as a tidbit, and violence towards children, which is discussed in that book as well. Take that with a grain of salt. The next book I want to talk about is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I was watching a video by Shaughnessy, and she was just like, this is a 5-star read for her. And so I was just like, oh, if it's a 5-star read for you, I need to at least try and like go and read the book. So I read the first book. I'm definitely going to read the other books in the series. I just haven't come around to that as of yet. But the book is about this girl named Magnolia Parks. She comes from a very wealthy family, a very predominant family, and she's kind of just like frolicking through life. She has a career loosely, but money isn't really a problem ever. She's highly opinionated, and the one crux, the one issue of her life is this romance that she has with this man named Valentine, or BJ is what they call him. And the book takes you through mainly the events of her life over the a couple of months, and the toxicity that occurs between Magnolia and Valentine. Valentine has hurt Magnolia in multiple ways, and she has made it a point to hurt him back in very specific ways. And so it's this cycle of these people being in their early 20s, making really dumb decisions and hurting each other, and it's toxic, and it's a spiraling. And I have never been so entertained with going in circles. I don't even know how to explain it. Jessa, whoever, I don't know how you wrote a book that was literally us kind of going in circles over and over again and it being so entertaining. But shout outs to you. That is a 4-star read for me. I want to read Daisy Hates, which is the second book in the series, I believe. So when I do that, I'll definitely let you know. The fourth book that I want to talk about is a classic, ? And it's The Giver by Lois Lowry. I talked about this previously, but I learned about The Giver when I was in 8th grade. Core memory. I was in 8th grade. This girl came up to me. She was a girl who was popular, and she didn't read. Like, I know she didn't read unless she had to for class. You know what I mean? And so she came up to me. She was like, I read this book called The Giver, and it's really good, and I think you should read it. And I said, in my mind, you don't read, but I'm gonna check it out. And I read it, and my 14-year-old brain was just like, what in the world? It was my first time I felt like reading about a society of a utopian society. Very interesting. Basically, if you don't know, you probably do, but if you don't, that's fine. The Giver, it's about this society in which there are very structured rules and policies governed over the people who live in this society, which helps them be absolved from pain and hurt and trauma, but also with that comes the consequences of the simple delights and joys that we as people in this reality live and experience and enjoy are taken away because it's like an exchange. It's like exchange of simple human pleasures for safety and security and dependability. We follow this boy named Jonah in his life as he goes through the society and increases knowledge, and things happen. Is The Giver by Lois Lowry, definitely a 4-star read for me. The next book that I want to talk about is Out on the Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. It is a romantic comedy, just as a tidbit. And one of the biggest things or predominant things within this book is that both of the characters have a disability and they're falling in love. And they talk about kind of the nuances to a certain level of insecurities that some of the characters have to their disability and how they show up and experience love with them. It's a pretty good book. It's pretty solid. It wasn't everything, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is life-changing. It was okay. It was pretty good. Not bad. If you want a book that you're just like, I just need a book that just feel good, Hallmark type, I just need a cleanser of something nice to read, I would recommend that book. The next book that I want to talk to you guys about, I did a reading vlog about it a couple of days ago. I'll put it in the iCards above. And that book is Snowflower and The Secret Fan by Lisa C. This book is narrated by a woman named Lily, and she's talking about the friendship that she had with this woman named Snowflower. Their story starts off with in their adolescence, they are the same age. I think they're like even born on the same day. And they have this very unique friendship that in their society, it is China in the 19th century. And they are growing up together and they're learning things about each other. And it's really just talking about the nuances of their friendship and how their friendship has been this safety net for them in the society that explicitly tells them over and over again in different ways every single day that they are useless, unwanted, and that they have no value other than to their servitude that they can either show their husbands, their mother-in-laws, or their sons. I definitely thoroughly enjoyed it. It was fast paced, it's not that long of a book, and it has some really good themes and lessons, I think, within the book. Okay, so the book, when I purchased it, and honestly when I read it, just to go on a little bit of a tangent, come with me, hold my hand. Okay, I think when you talk about the book, one of the things in the book that they talk about a lot is foot binding. And my initial, I guess, inclination as someone in the Western society is to be like, oh my gosh, that's deplorable, human rights violations, oh, you don't care about women, X, Y, and Z. And I think the first idea and inclination is to judge. But the thing is, like, when you really think about it, every society that I have ever read of in any of my history classes has this level, specifically when we're speaking about women, of this sacrifice, this sacrifice that is expected. Right? And it's not said like, oh yeah, can you sacrifice this? It's not a question, it's a demand, it is a obligation, it is a responsibility that is given, and then given in a purpose of, well, that's what you're supposed to do. But then it's just the idea of like, I think that there are nuances even in today of 2024. And I think we're having more conversations about it, but there's still an element of this expectation for women to sacrifice for the pleasures of men. And that's crazy. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is before you pass judgment regarding other cultures and other atrocities that are done towards women, not saying that they're not atrocious or bad or deplorable, but I think I'm saying before you judge, not saying don't judge, but before you judge, take a look in the mirror. The last book that I want to talk to you about today is Demon's Dream by Ella Kaysen. I just finished this book. I think I talked about it at exhaust. And I really don't even know, I don't know how to tell you what this book is about. This book is a toxic love story between this man named Damien and this girl named Dream. And then we have a side plot of this girl named Danaea and this guy named Smoke falling in love. And that's basically what it is. And it's chaotic and it's wild, and the plot isn't, it's very episodic. Like the plot feels episodic, not linear, if that makes sense. So this book's amazing. I love the book. It was a fun read. It was fun. Do not read it if you do not like grammatical errors and that bothers you. Do not read it if you're looking for like a very succinct plot and a very specific storyline that is going to start at one point and end at another point. Don't read it if you are going to be overcome with plot holes. Like, it's not there for you to look that deep into it. Like, just go with the flow. Those are the 7 books that I wanted to talk to you about today. Those are like my 4-star reads for 2024 thus far. Thank you so much for watching today's video. And guess what? I'll see you tomorrow.